Coaching. Most of us have come across this word or may have noticed someone who has this role. But how often have we wondered what coaching means? I certainly had the wrong understanding of how valuable coaching could be before I went through my training and journey as a coach, too. Hi, welcome to Curious Monica by Innovators Box, where we study how different people thrive at different jobs. I'm your host, Monica King, and today I'm excited to dive into a field that has been growing, but is still misunderstood for its depth of work: coaching.
Someone told me, well, that's kind of called coaching. And I had really thought coaching was something you do when you're 65, retired, have a full life of experience to offer. And I've learned, obviously, since then, that coaching is not that.
I didn't know what coaching was when I was in college or law school even. Didn't think that there was a job like that at the UN. Even when I applied for the job, the posting didn't really indicate that that was the job. So it was all a very big surprise.
I'm seeing companies and organizations investing in their talent a lot earlier. When we started, this was called executive coaching, and it was a privilege reserved for the C-suite. And the truth is, while of course coaching is beneficial to people at any point in their career, people who start their coaching journeys earlier really blossom and thrive.
Right now, if you go out there, you can see a lot of people call themselves a consultant, a coach, marketing gurus, whatever, teaching you how to make money. Like for me, anyone who say that they are coaching you to make money, that's a red flag.
The fear that people often carry around about being judged by others leads to a sense of disconnection.
I've had many years in leadership and development, and I realized along the way that coaching is the thing that makes the biggest long-term difference. And that's what drew me into the world of coaching.
Coaching. What is it? How do people get into this job? Why does it matter? Catching up with my 6 coach friends was humbling because it reminded me how little I also knew about coaching not so long ago. Coaching was a job I suddenly started to hear a lot more about after graduate school. Maybe it's because of the people I got to hang out with, a lot of entrepreneurs, businesses, and social impact people. Or maybe it was because of where I was in my career, a mid-career professional seeking growth. In that spot, you start looking for what more is out there beyond your career counselors, mentors, and advisors. But honestly, as I met people who did coaching, while I sensed a different care in the way they engaged and spoke with thoughtfulness, I wasn't really sure what they did and how they made a difference. Isn't problem solving more important? Also, their message on mindfulness at times felt too theoretical for me. How does listening, reflecting, and pausing really help you? Also, what is the difference between a life coach and a certified coach, and how do you know who is good or not? Because just like any industry, these nuances matter. And if you want to take a moment to learn more about all these nuances and finally find some clarity, this is the episode you want to dive into. To start, I asked 6 friends to share their journey to coaching, and sure enough, my "what is coaching" question is one they get asked all the time. So you are not alone.
It's a tricky one because always when I start working with a new client, I actually ask them what they think coaching is. Because the word is out there and used in so many different ways. Quite often we use coaching when really what we mean is onboarding and training somebody. And that's not wrong, but that's a lot of what I thought it meant before. The coaches we know are often sports coaches.
Meet my friend Julia Smith, a global coach and a facilitator at Innovators Box in London and UK who has been coaching and helping leaders for over a decade. Having worked across continents and industries, she is passionate about making coaching more accessible, but noticed how one of the barriers to coaching is the misunderstanding people have of the profession. As she shared, we are used to seeing coaching in one dimension, such as sport coaches. So what is coaching?
I had a taster session of coaching and realized, all these years I thought I was coaching. No, I wasn't. So that really helped me dig in to understanding how coaching is facilitating somebody else's thinking, helping them explore things from different angles, different perspectives, and unlocking what's in their head that they didn't even know was in there, because most of the solutions that we need are in here somewhere. We've just got to find a way to pull that out. And that's how a coach can help.
A skill that could really help you in everything you do? I mean, yes, sign me up. Who would not want that, right? If that's how you felt listening to Julie, you're not alone. The International Coaching Federation, ICF, is the global certifying body for coaches and shares that the coaching industry is one of the fastest growing sectors in the world, with an expected market size of 20 billion USD by 2022. More organizations and individuals are using coaching services and seeking specialized expertise to get help tackling all different kinds of workplace challenges, including conflict resolution. Meet Vic Kapoor, a coach, facilitator, and litigator who loves to neutralize major disputes in the workplace. He has both coached, designed coaching programs in the federal government and the United Nations, and been an ombud, a public advocate officer in charge of representing interests of the public by addressing complaints of maladministration and violation of their rights. And he shares why he too was surprised at first to find coaching at his dream job at the United Nations.
I didn't know what coaching was when I was in college or law school even. Didn't think that there was a job like that at the UN. Even when I applied for the job, the posting didn't really indicate that that was the job. So it was all a very big surprise when I learned as to how much travel there would be, how much flexibility there would be. And so I started off as a mediator and an attorney, and then moved into facilitation, and then learned about conflict coaching, which I think my second session ever, somebody asked me how many years I'd been doing this. And I thought, well, maybe this is a sign that I'm going to do well at this and enjoy it.
So Vic, tell me more.
Culturally, too, it makes a big difference, because if you're in the Middle East or in some parts of Africa, pure coaching, the International Coach Federation model, which is all about asking questions, listening, having some level of reflection, making observations, helping people really hear what they've said already, and then help them think of a good outcome that they want from this conversation. So as you hear me, I'm not saying we're giving a lot of advice, we're not directing, we don't tell people what to do, we don't make the choices for them as a coach. And in some countries and in some regions, that is challenging because, well, why would I come to you if you're not going to give me an answer?
True. I admit this is how I felt about coaching before I got into it. Why am I talking to someone who is simply going to listen and share what I may know? How is this going to help me? Shouldn't I be speaking to someone who will help me figure out what I need to do and can tell me what I need to do?
There's a great TED Talk I would recommend to you. It's called How to Tame Your Advice Monster. And you hear it in this TED Talk. It's very obvious from Michael Bungay-Stanier, who speaks about it, that when we're giving advice and we're helping to solve a problem, we're probably solving the wrong problem. We haven't spent the time to dig in and figure out what the actual problem is. And so that's what I've learned over and over again in my work. In the beginning, I thought I would give people a lot of advice. I thought I would give them everything I know. And then I quickly realized when I asked the questions and I slowed it down, the answer they came up with was way better than the one I would have come up with. So it's a different kind of listening. It's something you can't get from your friends or your family members or your mentors, because they all have skin in the game. They all have an investment. They want to solve something for you. They want to give you their wisdom. And in coaching, it's really about clearing the space so that you have just a little bit more room to be able to maneuver, to think about what's on your mind.
Oh, yes, I'm guilty. How often have we, quote, listened to a friend's story, quote, who wanted to feel heard and understood, but we immediately jumped into problem solving? Yes, while that friend may want or support solving something, it's so important that we hold space to hear and listen. That's a lot harder than we think because it requires us to be present, be open, and listen. In a way, our act of wanting to problem solve can be the very thing that prevents others from growing. We are jumping in with our assumptions before fully taking the time to listen and wonder what he or she needs. Sherry Arafetchan agrees. She shares why, for this reason, she keeps Coach Jim Patterson's quote in all her presentations and affirmation boards.
It says, "We do not coach for a problem to be solved. We coach for a life to be lived." It's really important to be thinking about your own reaction to someone showing up to you. Our natural instinct is to want to fix it and resolve it for them as soon as possible. But we have to trust that the person is capable of solving that problem. And so the work is to really think about shifting your lens towards if someone shows up to you with a crumbled up piece of paper in front of them, that we're not worried about the crumbled up piece of paper. That person will know how they need to straighten that out and what to write on it. But we turn and shift our focus and look up at the human holding that piece of paper.
This nuance is really important for Sherry Era Hutchin because she is a problem solver at heart. After working in electrical engineering and in a non-profit partnerships, she realized how much she loved working with people and got curious about creating spaces for others. Still, she wasn't sure if coaching was something she could do. At least not until she was a lot older.
I kept showing up to create space for folks. And so people kept saying, "There's something you do. I feel safe. I feel like I can be messy. I can throw stuff up there and we can figure out what comes out on the other end." And someone told me, "Well, that's kind of called coaching." And I had really thought coaching was something you do when you're 65, retired, have a full life of experience to offer. And I've learned, obviously, since then that coaching is not that. And it's actually a very particular skill set and way of interacting and viewing someone else.
Tell me more. Is there a way also to differentiate between a great coach and not so good? For someone who may be looking for a good coach, how would they know someone is good or not? If everyone says they are the best coach.
I'm really glad you brought that up. A lot of people claim the title of coach and may not understand that it's actually a very specific lens that you're holding. So, for those who don't know what coaching is, I would love to differentiate that between something like mentoring or consulting, which is a lot about problem solving and giving advice or giving solutions based in your expertise or experience. And coaching really is none of that. It can be a blend, but pure coaching is I am helping you grow as a human being in order to solve your own problems. So my focus isn't your problem. My focus is you as a human being and where you are in your growth, and building your capacity to solve your own problems.
The first time I learned this nuance was during my coaching training in 2016. It was like a wake-up call. It made so much more sense. From a glance, coaching, mentoring, advising, consulting, and even therapy comes across as somewhat similar. It's someone who is listening or someone who is asking you a lot of questions to support you. What is different, however, is the purpose. And this is actually how I learned how to vet who is coaching versus who says he or she is coaching but actually directing their own opinion. Mentors and advisors give guidance and solutions based on their opinion and experience. Consultants share ideas that the client will implement. Therapists tackle your mental well-being and prescribe your solutions with their training. Coaches, on the other hand, hold space for you to be you by listening, something that requires high EQ and listening skills. It's a humbling role to focus on saying you are there not for you, but for them. And focusing your entire attention on how you can serve your client and letting them be themselves. If you really pause and think about this, how often do you get to be just yourself? How many people let you think out loud and meet you where you are without sharing their own agenda? Most of us don't get to experience that, nor have a regular space to process our thoughts, which is why a lot of thriving and fast-growing leaders have a coach. In a way, if we know how important coaching is in sports, why don't we consider that for all of our lives? One of the reasons why we see this gap of understanding coaching is due to the lack of access to coaching. How can you understand what coaching can be if you've never received it? It's understandable. This is why Sherry is particularly passionate about working for females and women of color who traditionally haven't had coaching access.
In my one-to-one work, I work with women and people of color almost exclusively. And again, with people taking the risk to be authentic to themselves, which is harder for people who are marginalized in the world. We have a lot more to overcome internally. We recognize and acknowledge that there are a lot of external structural pieces, but my work with folks is around what's going on internally and how they might have internalized some of those limits into what might show up as doubt or overwhelm or insecurity, and realizing that is not only on you as an individual, that there are lots of forces that have been in play since our birth and even before our birth that have led to a lot of these belief systems and helping you move towards taking that risk.
Sherry's intention matters because not only is she making coaching more relatable for diverse audiences, but she's also making it more accessible. If Tony Robbins was the only way you thought coaching can be done, then so many individuals today are losing the chance to have access to honing their resilience and leadership skills. This is why Kasia Grugur also became passionate about coaching. She realized leaders who learn how to do this for their team can make a huge difference in how they lead and work across complexity.
I hadn't planned on becoming a coach. I was originally planning to lead leadership workshops. And then I came across coaching. And it was only when I was actually in my first coaching course, learning about what it is in a coaching conversation, that I realized that this is really what I wanted to dedicate my time to and the rest of my career to. It really started to feel like it was my purpose to share this skill with others. And one of my loves is to actually teach leaders how to coach their own teams to experience the power of coaching themselves.
Kasia Grugur is a coach at Innovators Box in Canada who has served various global leaders for the past 8 years for organizations like Uber Eats, Amazon, Samsung, and Stanford University. And because she has seen the consistent challenges leaders face, she shares why more leaders having the coaching skill to coach their team is so crucial.
I think that in our culture, because leaders are used to having all the answers, or at least they want to have all the answers, they want to be able to problem solve. They have an identity attached to being able to resolve things as soon as possible. And there's that sense of positive emotion that's actually attached to that. So there's a bit of this hero complex that I see. And with coaching, leaders step back a little bit and allow the space for their team members to shine. And that means giving much less advice and actually allowing the possibility to come forward. So that's a creative process, which I find a lot of people just aren't accustomed to.
Yes, I hear you. I grew up in two cultures where I'm used to being told to follow the rules. And as leaders, we feel that's the way we will empower our team. But the coaching-minded leader not only knows how to get comfortable navigating changes for oneself, but also training others how to think and see in that way. This is why some of the changes we are seeing in how coaching is done in the workplace are really exciting. Jennifer Hart shares more why.
On my end, there's two things that I'm really excited about. The first one is I think we're seeing more understanding than ever about the difference between leadership with a little L and leadership with a big L. The understanding that it's not a title that makes you a leader and that your leadership journey starts on day one. The second thing, which is kind of related, is I'm seeing companies and organizations investing in their talent a lot earlier. You know, when we started, this was called executive coaching, and it was a privilege reserved for the C-suite. And the truth is, while of course coaching is beneficial to people at any point in their career, the studies are showing that people who start their coaching journeys earlier really blossom and thrive. And I'm very excited about that.
Jennifer Hart is also a coach and facilitator at Innovators Box in Maryland. It has been coaching entrepreneurs and global leaders for over a decade. I asked her further about how one can be prepared for the changing landscape. If someone who is listening is eager to be a coach, how can they hone their crafts? What should they work on?
In coaching is a high vulnerability profession. You show up, you don't know how your client's going to react to you. You have to admit you may not have the answers. You may ask a question that goes awry. And you have to still somehow show up and train yourself to realize that it's not about you. And that is incredibly hard, especially for service-oriented people who want to help.
Indeed. This is why when I asked my friends what skills will be crucial for one to be a better coach, active listening, empathy, and non-judgment was key, but also was self-awareness, to have the humility to show up being prepared for everything. Carfei shares how it was important as he went through his journey to be vulnerable first and to be the coach he wanted to be for others. He looks back at a time a few years ago when he was doing a lot of coaching that made him question why he was doing it at all.
There was this one point of time in my life where I've been doing so much coaching. I have like 3 to 4 coaching a day. That was really kind of like, number one, is draining a lot of my energy. But second, it really kind of pushes me to a point where I actually question myself, like, oh, does this mean that I'm already, one of the best coaches? I actually took a step back because I was just coaching so much. I took a whole week off and I actually started questioning myself. Why am I doing this in the first place? Right? So I try to get back to that essence of what motivates me to keep going. And then I kind of dive deeper into really understanding that human, it's an everly evolved being, which means that whatever that I know 5 years ago to help people to change might not kind of work today. Or it might work, but it has other, context, other, factor that I need to take into consideration, and so on and so forth. And it was then that I realized that, what? The most important thing about being a coach, it's about my personal growth.
My friend Carfei Chia is a coach in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, who has been coaching leaders for the past 10 years and is someone who truly never stops learning. He is also very active on social media to help debunk what it means to grow as a leader, and shares more on why this personal growth as a coach is so important to serve others. You can find him at Coach Carfei on Instagram.
Because for me, if I am not growing, I can't expect my client to grow and transform. Mastery, it doesn't mean mastering coaching. Mastery means mastering yourself. And this is applicable to every single thing that people do in life. You have a full-time job, you're a CEO, you're an executive, you're a VP, you're an entrepreneur, you run a small, medium business, whatever. Mastery, it's about mastering yourself. And the thing about human and the thing about us is that there's always the next thing to master. If you feel that you have mastered your emotion today, try being a parent to 3 kids.
Mastering your emotions and thoughts. Yes, there is always room for growth to take things to the next level. And it takes humility to realize as a coach and expert that you are constantly growing, that you're never there. His story of how he first got to understand the power of coaching made me smile.
Growing up, I'm always the overlooked person. And that's a problem. When you are always the overlooked person, your self-confidence and your belief about yourself gets diminished every single time. It's like no matter how well you do, no matter how good you are, you always don't get chosen. So for me, when I was 19, this mentor of mine actually believed in me. And the reason why it got so strong to me is because he was probably about late 40s, early 50s. And he was actually a CEO of a big company. He's managing one of Asia's largest marketing communications PR agency in the region. This guy believed in me. He said that I have the passion, I have the drive. You could become who you want to become. And that thought was the one that kind of shifted my perspective about myself. That's the thing. I needed someone to reflect to me about something that I have in myself that I never believed in myself.
Finding someone who believes in you. It's really powerful to have that. We all want to feel understood and heard. And this is why I admired what Carfe decided to do next when he realized he really wanted to get to know him more.
Being young, wild, and stupid, because the words that he used, things that he says really impacted me a lot, I decided to just ask him to be my mentor. I was part of an NGO. I was trying to raise funds and I managed to cold call, and he was nice enough to want to meet and accept that meeting and all these things. So I met him for the first time, a total stranger. We talked for an hour and a half. Obviously, the partnership didn't happen, but we built a connection. And one thing that I realized was that after he said that whole thing about, he believed in me, he think I can become better and all these kind of different things, the next day, what I did was I actually texted him. So back then, 13 years ago, it was BlackBerry. It was my favorite phone back then, right? BlackBerry Messenger, best thing ever, right?
Wow, really? What happened? Did he respond?
I actually BBM him and asked him, hey, I really appreciate the conversation yesterday, and it has impacted me because it made me think about myself, my life, and what I want. Would you be willing to be my mentor? And that just became the ripple effect for everything else. And he said yes. And then he was like, yeah, but if you want to be my mentee, then you have to commit. I told him, yeah, I can do anything. I'm willing to, right? So he told me, yeah, then our meeting will always be at 7:30 a.m. in the morning on a weekday, right? So I have to brace through traffic. I have to go through his office area where it's hard to get parking and all these kind of different things to meet him at 7:30 a.m. every 2 weeks. The lesson for me here is that at the end of the day, you wouldn't know if that someone is being real, if that someone is really there for you, until you take action and figure it out. Take action, evaluate, and take action again. That for me has been the most useful model of how I get things done, how I get to where I am today as well, right? Just by taking action.
Taking action indeed. This is why now as a coach, he continues to not only hone his mastery, but also encourages others on how they can take action in being who they are. And I hope as you are listening, you are wondering how indeed you can take action in integrating these insights and perspectives into your life. Maybe you are here as a coach, or maybe you are here wanting to learn more. Either case, there is always something to learn and bring back into what we do. And while at it, how can you be curious about what you learn? Vic reminds us why being curious about our emotions and how we communicate matters.
Most people just think they have a limited number of emotions, right? Just anger, disgust, happy, sad, just a few. There's so many more. And if you look at something like Plutchik's Wheel of Emotion, you can kind of see the visual of how many emotions there really are. So getting more literate, first of all, and seeing what is it? Am I frustrated, or am I peeved, or am I really angry, or is there hatred involved? What is it? And how can I express that in a way that's going to get my point across? And so there's a great model, nonviolent communication, which is, look, when you do this thing, I feel a certain way and I need something else. And so my request is that you do this thing.
Being a good leader takes a lot of self-awareness, humility, and reflection. Julie and Jennifer remind us that who we see on a resume is only part of who they are as a person. The confidence in that person is essentially the result of how one has taken action and courage along the way to be who he or she is.
The topic that comes up time and time again is confidence. And one thing that I've really realized, it doesn't matter how amazing someone's LinkedIn profile is. You can look at that and be intimidated. But when you meet that person one-to-one in coaching, you realize they've got fears, they've got worries. They go into some meetings, some interactions, and they are terrified. And I think if we can only share that as one thing with the rest of the world, that when you look around and think other people have got it all together and they're totally confident, I can assure you they're not. And I think even just having that self-awareness and being able to share that in coaching lifts a lot from people, to be able to be vulnerable and say, do you know what? I might have this amazing profile, but there are things that I'm not 100% confident in, or I don't feel 100% ready to do. Because if you can acknowledge that, then you can start working on that and working towards it. And that's how coaching can help. So that's one of the things that really stands out to me.
What you said about confidence earlier, Julie, really resonates with me because that's something I see as well. And when I work with clients, I say, confidence is the end result. How you get there is courage. And let's focus on that because we can't always control the results, but we can control this next step we take. And it's a powerful lesson for us, I think, no matter what we do.
This was an important reminder, especially nowadays when we feel everyone seems so put together online. But there's a human behind each photo and resume. And there is even more potential in how someone can do more. Coaches are your accountability partner. They're here to listen, support, challenge, and help you see how to tap into your hidden potential. They believe in you. And so as Sherry shares, don't do this alone.
First, I want to say that I don't do this alone. And so I think the first skill might be having community and having people to support. So friends, mentors, family, your partner, those are the things that have given me safe harbor and courage to be able to take risk.
Your surroundings matter. This is why as I went through my coaching journey, too, I became even more mindful to surround myself with people who truly believe in me and challenge me to think differently and bigger. This is why we as coaches take the role of creating a safe space for our clients seriously and humbling. The time, presence, and conversations we share can be impactful, not just today, but tomorrow too. So I'm curious to hear from you. As you learn more about the role of coaching and what it means to be a coach, what questions are coming up for you? What are you hoping to learn more about? Take down those thoughts and perspectives because those are all key elements to starting your journey to thinking with a coaching mindset. Next week, I'm excited to dive into a space we are hearing a lot about: tech entrepreneurs. What does it mean to be one, and what does that work really mean? Curious to learn more? Join me next week here at Curious Monica.
Oh, hi. I'm Monica Escobar, the visual brand designer at Innovators Box, and I hope you're enjoying Curious Monica. I'm passionate about design, and I get to dive deep into my creativity while designing for Innovators Box. This show is brought together by our awesome team: producer Saren O, audio engineers Sam Limmer and Ravi Ladd, Kelly Gravo on marketing, website designer at Kriti Pandey, myself, graphic designer, and Luke Helder on music. And of course, this show is hosted and directed by the curious woman herself, Monica Kang, founder and CEO of Innovators Box. To continue the curiosity and creativity of the workplace, visit us at innovatorsbox.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share. We'd love to hear what you're curious about and what mysteries Monica can uncover in our next episodes. See you next week.
This is your host, Monica King at Innovators Box, and I'll see you again soon.